As you've seen so far, we're starting to get an actual really functioning application together with good error handling and validation throughout, right? But, we have to move on from here. And the real world apps are not quite this simple. Actually, the client has brought an issue to our attention. The medical practice has got an issue. There are many twins, even triplets in the area, and we have to make sure that a patient isn't added to the system twice. Now, usually twins and so on have the same date of birth, right? And the same last name. So we have to add a unique constraint that is a combination of first name, last name, and date of birth. So as we've seen before, one of the best ways or places to do that is right in the context itself using the Fluent API, right? Here's where, of course, we added our restriction on cascade delete from doctor to patient. Then we added for the patient the unique OHIP number. So in order to deal with this, what we're going to do is get some more code in place, right? Basically, we're going to do another restriction on the patient. We're going to say, again, has index. Right? But in this case, the index, the lambda expression, right, is going to be a little different from the previous one. We just had OHIP to identify, right? So our lambda was simply, basically P goes to, right? So how do we do a composite index here? Well, basically it's as simple as that, right? Now we aren't quite done because we want to also say is unique. And that's it. That's the end of the code we have to add, right? So it's a combination. So we make a new anonymous type here made up of the date of birth, the last name, and the first name. And that's sufficient to tell our migration, our entity framework core, to actually build in the database a unique constraint on the combination of those three fields in the database table. Now, of course, we would have to do a new migration to actually put this in place and so on, but we're about to do some other changes as well. So we're going to leave that for the moment. However, we have introduced yet another, right, possible DB update exception. So let's go to the patient's controller before we get to do this. And if I do Control MO, shrink everything down, it's in the post event for both create and edit that we have to be concerned about this. So as we create, right, notice we already had here a test for the unique OHIP number. So basically, we're just going to modify our catch here a little bit so that it works for multiple possible DB exceptions, right? So I'm going to grab the message first of all, put it in a string. Then I can check if it contains unique and OHIP, and if it does, we'll give our message there. Else if it contains unique and the patient date of birth. Now, I could have picked any of the three, right? But this is the only thing that involves both a unique constraint of the date of birth. So I could check more than one too, but I think this is sufficient in my situation. If I'm violating that unique constraint, it will have this inside it. Feel free to set a breakpoint, have a look at the message and see for yourself. So I can say unable to save changes. You can have duplicate names and date of birth, right? Okay, now just one more thing. Also, we'll do the same thing in the edit post. Come down here for the catch block for DB update exceptions and put the same code there. Don't worry, eventually we'll look at consolidating more of this code, but I just want to keep things simple and take things a step at a time. All right, good. Now, as I said, we won't worry about the migrations yet because before we go on, we're also going to be doing something else. We're going to be adding yet another entity into the mix, right? So far, all we have is our doctor and patient, right? But what we're going to do now is we're going to throw in this additional parent to the patient entity, okay? So we have another foreign key we're going to introduce into patient for the medical trial. Biggest difference here is the fact, what do you see here, right? It's a nullable foreign key. In other words, a patient does not have to be in a medical trial. That is unlike the doctor-patient relationship for primary care physician. Every patient must be assigned to doctor, but they don't have to be in a medical trial, right? Okay, so what we're going to do, we'll come down to models. First of all, of course, we actually have to add the medical trial entity, right? Model class. So I'll right-click models. We will add the class itself. for medical trial, right? And here are the properties that I've identified that we should have. Okay, again, our integer identity primary key following the approach we're using throughout. Here's a string for the trial name, okay? And I'm not making it a nullable string, so I'm giving it a default of an empty string. Display name, trial name. Note that it's required. You cannot leave the name of the trial blank. A limit on the string length, okay? No more than 200 characters long. You know what? I'm going to make it bigger than that. But some of these names are massively big, so I'm going to change it right now. I'm going to make it 500 characters. Okay. Multi-line text. By the way, this data type here will give a hint when scaffolding the view to create a text area as opposed to a text input, right? This is a good one to note. Because this is a nullable foreign key, there might not be, okay, a value. So we're going to give a null display text here of none. So if they aren't in a trial, it can actually just say none. And that's very helpful to us as we go forward. Now, of course, this is still a parent to the patient object. So just like we did in doctor, we have the exact same code here. I collection of patients, okay, initialized through a new empty hash set. All right, now on to the patient class, because of course we have to have a foreign key here as well. So coming down, well, actually a couple things, right? We need, now I could put it above or below the doctor foreign key. I try to keep all the foreign keys nestled together. I might stick it up here. So it's going to be very much the same as what we have here for the foreign key for the doctor. It's really the object itself is the key thing. But along with that, we want to have access so we can control or at least manipulate if necessary, the integer foreign key, have access to that, right? The main difference you see here, well, two things, okay? But the most important one is this right there. We're making the integer for the foreign key a nullable int, right? Okay, and of course the medical trial object itself is nullable, but we did that with doctor as well, right? The only other thing I've added here that's a little different is I've added a display name for the actual medical trial object, because there might be times when we show it or it's involved in the UI itself. And of course, we don't want it appearing with just the property name without a space between the two words. Okay, so that completes the changes in the two entities involved, right? But we aren't quite done. We have, of course, add a new DB set. So come to our medical office context, and we'll just add that DB set for medical trial. Okay, called medical trials is the name for the collection or the DB set of medical trial objects. Now you might say, wait a second, down here, of course, we added a restriction on the delete behavior, right, between the parent and child objects here, doctor to patient. Do we have to do that again here for cascade delete? We surely don't want to be able to delete a medical trial if there are any patients enrolled in that trial, right? Well, guess what? The answer is no, right? We don't need to add anything to the Fluent API code for that, right? Because with a nullable foreign key, Entity Framework code defaults to a restrict anyway, right? So that's already there for us. Okay, that's a difference between the two as well, a nullable and non-nullable foreign key. Okay, so we won't technically get any errors with our seed data because the foreign key allows null, but it's a good idea to add a few trials into our seed data and at least assign to one or two patients. So I'm going to save everything, close all this up, and let's come to our initializer, right? So just as we added doctors, okay, and before we create the patients, I'm going to add some medical trials. So I'm going to put this little bit of code in place here, right from my copy paste file. Okay, context medical trials. If there aren't any, then I'm going to add a range of them. Just 3 different ones that I've grabbed. A couple of them are actual legitimate. This one I made up. Hair loss treatment. Anyway, there you go. All right. Okay, so we'll save those changes, and then I'll come down here into patients, and I don't know, I'll just pick 1 or 2 patients where I'll add a medical trial ID, right? I don't even have to mention it for the ones that it'll be null. So here I'm going to throw Fred Flintstone into the leukemia treatment medical trial, right? Okay, and maybe I'll throw Wilma into this other one that I have there. Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll throw one more person. I'll put Jane Samantha Doe. Now, she's out of province, so it might not make sense. Maybe I'll pick Barney after all. Put Barney in that same one as well. Okay, all right. Now, we need to get our migrations and so on in place, right? So here I'll come up. I have my common commands. So I'm going to add another migration to my medical office. So I'm going to copy this, go down to Tools, get the NuGet Package Manager console up and going. I should just do a build. See if there's any build errors first before I get into this as well. And rebuild all succeeded. Okay, there we go. All right, so add migration. Okay, I don't need the data folder. I have to have a new name. Medical. Caps lock. Darn caps lock. Add medical trial. And press enter. And so far, so good. Okay. We seem to look at what we're doing here. We're adding that column, right, to the actual patient, creating the table for medical trials with its primary key. And notice that we have the index that we've added as well, and date of birth, last name, first name. Okay, we have the index for the foreign key for the medical trial ID, right? And away we go. Okay, all right, so that's good. Can we actually update database? Let's try it and see. Okay, we got some warnings there. Let's just come back and have a quick look in yellow. Okay, cannot be executed in a transaction. It's just a warning that we'll probably, okay, probably get away with it. All right. Most likely we will, okay? If you're not sure at any point in time, feel free to do what we've talked about doing in the past, okay? There's no harm. We're quite confident at this point. Yes, you know, we've talked about migrations, how it's great. You can test, you can go forward and backward through your migrations, trying out different models and, you know, see what works and what doesn't. But you know what? At any point in time, we can actually just start fresh, right? So you know what? I'm going to do that now because it's good to kind of go through the steps. I can just delete the actual database itself, delete. I can come up to my medical office migrations and just delete it completely. Okay. So to start a new set of migrations, once more back into here. So here is where actually from the common commands, I do need the original because I need to specify the folder because I've deleted it. And I can call it initial. So the interesting thing about this, we're going to take time to have a quick look at it. We're doing everything. We're creating the doctors, we're creating the medical trials, we're creating the patients, and notice it has both the foreign keys. All the good stuff is here. We've created everything based on the current state of the overall model, so to speak, of the application, right? Everything is here. Now I'm going to try updating database. All good. No red, no yellow, no warnings, nothing. So we're perfectly good. So we're confident now. Sure, we only have one migration, but I'm okay with that because, you know, we're never going to roll back to any of those earlier designs, were we, right? We're just building it up and adding to it as we go along. Okay, now that's good. So the next question we have is, how about our controllers and views? We've added new things, right? We've added our medical trials and so on. Should we delete them and rescaffold them? I'm going to say no, probably no. There are times, you know, if you've done virtually nothing, you've just scaffolded them and used them so far to do a bunch of quick testing, then that'd be different. But we've already gone in and we've done a fair bit of work. Remember, we added our summary properties. We changed the columns to work with our new summary properties, fixed things like showing, just the first name of doctor in the lookups and so on and so forth, right? So no, I think I'm not going to delete them and rescaffold them and have to do all that work over again. I'm going to go into them as they are and just modify them as I need to, right? So I could start with either the controller or the views, but in terms of the patient then, what I'm going to do here is come down to the views for patient. Now we will have to scaffold for the medical trial eventually, but you know what? I'm going to be happy with my seeded data right now. I'm not going to worry about maintaining medical trials because by the time we get to that in the course, we're going to be learning an entirely different approach to handling that along with other lookup values, things that, are pretty static that we just have in drop-down lists, right? So no, we're skipping over the medical trial controller altogether. So coming to patient index, okay, we're going to make a few changes here on the index. Talking in consultation with our client, we've decided to remove the phone number altogether, right? Decided we don't need it showing here on the index view. It's available on details, right? So if we actually need to, hey, focus on one patient, we got to reach out and phone them. You just click details and the phone number will be right there. That gives us a column here that we can repurpose, okay, for the medical trial name, right? Medical trial dot trial name. Okay, now that's a warning there because it could be null if we didn't include it, but that's okay. We're just going to live with that for now. All right, and then the same thing down here where we had phone formatted. No, we're going to get rid of that. And again, medical trial name is what we're going to show. Okay, and that's also where it's going to be handy that we have that none, right? Okay. All right, so that's good on there, on the index view. And you know what? On the detail and delete view, okay, we're going to add a DT-DD pair, right, for the medical trial as well. So on details and delete, right, come down here, maybe near the bottom. We could do it right above the doctor if we want, okay? Basically, I could even copy and paste one of these. Control C, Control V, right? Oh, I didn't need that blank line. And so what I'll do is I'm going to steal this for medical trial name, and might as well copy paste. Okay. So I have that now on the delete view, and I can copy it, come over to the details view. I'm going to put it in the same spot for now. Might as well be reasonably consistent, right? So now I'm ready to show that on the index, details, delete as well, right? That's all good. Okay, how about our create and edit views? Well, let's get those up, edit and create. So we're going to have a similar form group here, right? Maybe I'll put it under coverage to be consistent with how I've been doing it in other places. So it's going to be very much like, okay, if I come here to edit, very much like the doctor one. Okay, it is a foreign key, right? But let's talk about the difference here. I didn't bother with, remember on the create, well, let me put it in place here too, before I forget. So right above doctor, okay, here's my form group. Now it is similar on the create. Remember we added our own option value here. Value is an empty string, and we have selected doctor. It's our prompt at the top of the list. Well, we're doing something similar here on the create process for the medical trial, where we have option is none, okay? And then, of course, we'll get data. We haven't added this yet to the view bag, but we will be getting data listing the medical trials and so on, right? And then we'll have that available in the drop-down list, right? Okay, good. So that's all fine here. It makes sense that we would have option none, right? Notice I don't really need a validation span because they're allowed to select none, right? So I'm okay with that for now, right? Actually, we will eventually need it. So I know there's no reason at this point why we do want it, but eventually we will. So trust me, I'll just change this to medical trial ID. There. Okay. All right. So that's good here. Okay. Now, see, it isn't a problem. Just because it's none, it's not going to show up. It's only later on that we're going to actually be able to make use of that, right? So I might as well get that same span and add it here as well. Okay. So again, when we just highlight this, the difference now on the edit, okay, we no longer need the prompt or select a doctor because it's an existing patient. There always has to be a doctor assigned. So that is different with the medical trial. They don't have to be in a medical trial. So they might be in one right now and, oh, they've just dropped out of the trial. We need to be able to come in here and edit the patient and select none because we're removing them from the trial, right? Okay, so that's the changes for the medical trial. We've handled all 5 of our views: create, edit, delete, details, and index, right? But we have work to do in the patient controller, for sure, right? Okay, in the controller, well, let me just shrink everything down, Control M-O, go right to the bottom where we had our populate drop-down list, okay? Remember, we're calling this from all the right places inside of our actions throughout the controller, so we can come in here and prepare any drop-down lists, any select lists that we need and add them to view data. I could just go ahead and add the similar code that I'm doing for doctors here for my medical trial, and that would be valid. But I think this is a good time to talk about planning ahead as well in this case. It's a twist on the populate drop-down list approach. Instead of creating the select list and immediately signing it into view data, I'll give you a hint. Down the road, we're going to sometimes want to be able to call the method inside the controller to return the select list and not add it to view data. Sometimes we're going to want to just actually set it up so it can be sent separate and outside of any view, right? In particular, I'm giving away a lot here, we're going to set up so an AJAX request might come in and say, just give me the data for the drop-down list, because we might be doing some development outside of just refreshing an entire view, right? So as a twist on that, this is what we end up doing, okay? I'll just get all the code and we'll walk through it together. So I'm going to replace this whole populate drop-down list approach, okay, with it just doing it in stages, right? As I said, it's a twist on the approach. We're going to create methods that return each select list separately, right? And then we'll have one method to put them all into view data, right? That allows us to respond to AJAX requests to refresh a drop-down list, okay? Just give me the data, please, right? So this returns a select list for the doctor select list. Works basically in the same idea or same approach as what we just had. Same thing for our medical trial list here, and away we go. So now when we call populate drop-down lists, we pass in the patient. In here, we get our select list from these methods right above, okay? All right, and then we're adding them into view data here for our doctor ID and medical trial ID, same key value pair containing the select list itself. Okay, we're just generating the select list separately because we won't always want to add them to view data. Sometimes we'll want to respond to an AJAX request and give them there. But the beauty of this overall approach is all those spots where we call populate drop-down lists, we don't have to worry about it, okay? It's all set, okay? It'll still call the same method by name. It's just structured a little differently here. And notice how this works. For example, the doctor select list, when we call the little method here to return that, we pass in a selected ID. It's a nullable int, right? And that allows us to provide the pre-selected value in the select list if we want to, return the data back to the currently selected value if there is one, right? If there isn't, then we just return null for that because it's a nullable int. All right, good. So we're all set there. Now, we need to make sure the medical trial object is included in all the link queries whenever we have a patient to display, right? So that is going to happen throughout multiple spots in the controller earlier on, right? Let's start at the top, right here in the index. Okay, so notice we're including the doctor. I should have already had that on a separate line. So let's include the medical trial as well. That way, when it gets data for the index, it has all of that information, right? I might just remove this. It was there for educational purposes, but it's just cluttering up the index view now, so I'm going to take that out, okay? How about in details? Sure, same thing here. We're including the doctor, so we'll also include the medical trial. Good, that one's taken care of. Create. Yeah, we don't actually have to even get a doctor object at this point, so the get is fine. Okay. How about our whitelist? Absolutely, right? As we bind the patient, we have to make sure we also add medical trial ID. To our whitelist. Very good. So that when we build the patient, we take the value from medical trial ID and we make sure now it's in the whitelist, so it will be bound to the patient object that we build. Okay. All right, good. Now, edit. When we go and select the patient to edit, okay. Do we need to? No, we don't, right? We don't have to include it here because the patient, we just have the foreign key and the select list worry about displaying it. So we're fine there, right? In the patient's update though, actually, no, we don't need it here as well. So we're good. But we do have to make sure we add it in the whitelist, right? Okay, so once more, it'll be just like this. P goes to P dot medical trial ID. Okay. I don't know, maybe I'll push enter here just to keep it all nicely aligned so we can see it without scrolling left and right too much. Okay. All right. Let's just check delete. So here when we go get the doctor, yeah, let's include it here, right? So we'll add our include for the medical trial in the delete process. And in our delete confirmed as well. Okay. Whew, good. Okay. So again, maybe I'll just talk for a moment. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody. In the edit and create process, because the views are displayed, we only need the patient object in the model itself because all the foreign keys are looked after by the select lists, right? But that's unlike the other views. So we're good. Now, if we go back to the index view though, right? Well, actually, no, let's run it. We'll see. Let's see the result now. We should call our seed data. That should seed automatically for us because we're calling it in program.cs. So we should have our data in place. And we're up and running. When I go to patients, there we go. All right. Yes, we're seeing, okay, we see none where Jane is not in a trial. The other ones are all here. I see a bit of a problem. These names are so darn big and massive. They're taking up half the room of the screen here almost, right? Now let's just check in the create new. Okay, this is okay. Medical trial none, right? Or we have them here, right? I'm okay with that. Same with edit. Come down to medical trial, okay? And we see the list. I could put it on none. Let's just check if I can save changes here for Fred. There we go. And now it's set to none, all right? Details, okay. Oh, of course, now it says none. Let me go to somebody who's in one and select details. Yeah, then we're seeing the trial name there. Excellent. And of course, the delete, we'll see it as well. I'll just go back to the list. I don't want to delete anybody. So it's all good except for the index. I'm not happy with this issue on the index, right? So what can we do here, right? Well, what I can do on the index view is I could, down here, it's fine, the header row is fine. Down here where we have the trial name. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put a bit of code inside here, a bit of Razor code, right? Instead of this simple HTML display for. Okay? So I have I'm starting Razor code. This is inside here. So I have my medical trial. So if it's not equal to null, I'm going to just have the word yes showing, right? But I'm using a toggle here for a tooltip, okay? The title of the tooltip will be the trial name, right? Okay, so that's good. Let me actually, I could have left it running and shown you this change just with a hot reload, but let me bring it up. Coming to the patient's view now. Okay, that's better, right? So these are, I can click on them. Oh, nothing's happening. Okay, well, there's a reason for that. I didn't quite finish, right? Okay, we have to add a bit of JavaScript for the tooltips to work, okay, and have proper formatting, right? Okay, so I can add a little bit of JavaScript. Now, I only need it on this page, so I will add one of those. We talked about the fact that we can do this. I can add a scripts section, right? A section named scripts, have a little bit of JavaScript where this is just right out of the Bootstrap help files, right? We're just going to use Bootstrap to nicely style our tooltip for us and get it up on the screen, okay? All right, and how does that work? Let me just show you again. If I come into shared views, into layout, remember right here at the bottom, we render section anything that's called scripts. So that will add the script to the page when we actually run. And hopefully this time, when I click it, look at that. I just hover over it, and it nicely pops up with the actual tooltip itself, beautifully formatted by Bootstrap, and away we go. Now the ones that say no, right? So that's a nice way to present information that's, would otherwise really crowd the index view altogether, right? But we can still, of course, go into editor details, see the full name there of the trial as well, and away we go. All right, well, that basically finishes off our work adding the medical trial. Okay, we also dealt with the issue of having duplicate first name, last name, and date of birth. Okay, we can't have that. I haven't tested it yet, but trust me, it actually works. Okay.